Everywhere you are. And I don't see so long group.
You're a little loud.
But I don't know where the other one is.
A nice flavor, she stays healthy, but she don't. And Tracy stays healthy.
Sound check 1, 2. Hello, everybody. They can hear me now.
We're going to be starting in a couple of minutes. They're trying to get the sound set up for the online. And as soon as that is working, we'll get started. So, thank you. Back to what you were doing. Good evening, everyone. We're going to be starting now. The one thing that they've asked me to ask you is to keep the side noise down. It affects the online sound. And so the quieter that we have it in here, the better our friends at home are going to hear it as well. I'm Karen Fritsch. I am the election chair for the election for 2021. And I'm going to be standing over at the podium right now, but I wanted to be here so that our folks at home that are watching will know what person they have for what voice. So I'm going to move on over here now. Stronger than I thought. Anyway, I want to introduce the other members of our committee, and they're wandering around here. We have Liz Goodnow in the back. Liz, if you would just kind of wave to everybody. I think that was a wave. Jane Rogers, Ginny Agler, and I'm probably hiding her. And a couple of our members who couldn't be here tonight, Marie Farrell and Kim Miracle. We also have a couple of extra helpers for us tonight, and that's John Kedju and Russ Rogers. So thank you, helpers, and thank you, committee. Oh, I'm sorry, and Linda Goffin too. I'm sorry. I'm thinking she's a member here. Okay, so this year we have 6 candidates for the 3 board positions that are going to open up. I'd like to introduce them now in alphabetical order. And when I say your name, just kind of give a high five. And that's Chris Dabrowski, Donna Mosier, LeMay Neifert, Brenda Owens, Edward Weiner, and Patricia French-Weisler. Okay, now, you've all received a sheet explaining the procedures that we're going to use tonight, but I'm also going to go over them. First, each candidate will be given 3 minutes at the beginning of this session to answer an opening question about their background, experience, and reason for running for the board. Then for all further questions, every candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question asked. Our timekeeper will let them know when their time is up, but we'll certainly let them finish the thought or their sentence. They're not going to cut them off that quickly. In order to move things along in a timely manner, we've asked residents to submit their questions in advance. But after going through those questions, if we have time, we're going to read questions taken from tonight's audience. We supplied 3x5 cards for you to write down your question for the candidates, and I know some of you have gotten those already. Please limit it to one question per card. If you didn't pick up a card as you came in, the cards are available at the back of the auditorium, or raise your hand and one of our election committee members will bring you one. When you're done writing your question, just wave your card in the air and we will pick it up. We will do our best to combine related questions in order to avoid repetition for our candidates. When all questions have been asked or we have reached the end of our evening, each of the candidates will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. Our meeting will then conclude. The candidates will be encouraged to join the audience for a few minutes after the meeting to introduce themselves further to you. Okay, now we're going to start with our first and probably the most important question tonight. Remember, with this first question, each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to answer. Candidates, why do you want to be a Timber Oaks board director? And what experiences and background do you have that would help you do a quality job in this position for the community? And I will start alphabetically with Chris Dombrowski.
Good evening. I would like to be more involved with the decision-making process that a board member position gets, and also continue to serve the community.
Okay, Donna?
Can y'all hear me? Okay. I don't know if you can hear me through this mask or not. I talk so light. But one of the reasons I want to try to be on the board is because I have been to several meetings before and dealt with a lot of the people here in Timber Oaks. And one of the biggest things that I hear everybody say is, I don't think the board really listens to us. And I want to help be that voice for the residents so that when you say you want something done, we can try our best to try to get it done.
Okay, thank you. LeMay?
I honestly don't think I would have ever run. I've never thought I would run for the board, but honestly, since being down here year round and getting to see and talk to everyone, I see a lot of things that go on a lot of things that happen that us as residents don't even know about until it is a quote done deal. And I feel that I would be good in representing the people because I talk to you often. I'm willing to listen to other opinions. And I think it's important that we as residents have a voice in what goes on here.
Okay, thank you. Brenda?
Good afternoon. I just moved here and I'm just really curious about how things get done. So a professor of mine in college said, I'm paraphrasing, don't complain if you haven't written your congressman. I think really what he was saying was that you need to get involved if you want to know how things happen or if you want to create change. So that's the reason for my running. We haven't really touched so far about any qualifications. Are we supposed to do that now? Okay. In my previous life, before I retired, I was a manager for a couple different departments at a major electric utility in Indiana. And doing that, you have to be able to coordinate between departments, work with lots of different people. I also was our budget, so I had to watch the money and make sure we were spending appropriately. I also worked with a lot of contracts and obviously had to follow the rules and laws applicable to doing business in Indiana. I think that's probably it for right now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
Well, I've lived here since 2012. I enjoy this place, love it, want it to be the best place ever. And I want to listen to you. I think the board should be a reflection of the residents. That whatever you want, we'll try to get done. And, within the limits of the budget, but too often I guess you hear things that getting done that you wonder, why is that happening? So here I am to say, I'll add my 2 cents.
Thank you, Ed.
If we can get it done.
Thank you, Ed. Patty?
Good afternoon. My name is Patty Weislip. My family moved here approximately 1980-81. My mom, dad, and uncle. And I spent over 20 years vacationing here, summer, school holidays, myself and my children. You can't hear me?
No, it's static.
A lot of static.
A lot of static.
Is that better? Let's try this one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I worked for many years for Battered Women's Shelter, which meant you work with a diverse group of people who had very different ideas. You had to work with the judges and the lawyers and the clients and bring people to a space where they could all agree on very difficult issues. I also worked for the General Treasurer and the Lieutenant Governor as a senior policy aide, solving problems, writing legislature, testifying. My family's always been very active in Timber Oaks, and we love it here. I moved down full-time in 2004 to take care of my mother and became a full-time resident. I volunteered for Live Oaks. I stood behind the wine bar, adult beverage bar, for 10 years at every Tuesday night meeting. Also chaired Kentucky Derby, New Year's Eve, and several dances with my husband, Ron. We've always been very active. And I was on the board from 2008 to 2012. I've been on the Finance Committee and chaired it, and I've been on the Budget Committee and chaired it. I'm currently members of both those committees. And during the years when I weren't on the committees, I would go to the meetings anyway to keep myself informed. I think I have a lot to offer, and I hope you will agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Now we'll go to our first question. And remember, you'll have 1 minute apiece to answer it. And we're going to start with Donna this time. Now, anytime that you want me to repeat the question, I have no problem with that. So please ask if you need to. First question. Do you believe every project should have 3 bids as per past practice? Donna?
Yes, I do. I was a painting contractor myself for 35 years. I've been around the construction field my whole life. I've helped my dad do construction and everything. And I've also worked through the insurance companies for 5 years. So I'm well familiar with that. Anybody that says I can't get 3 bids, that's not true. There's bids you can get. The good thing about getting the bids, you get the opportunity to see what all is entailed in that price that you're going to be getting. And then this way, we won't get hit with hidden charges, or this little thing got left off, or that little thing got left off. So yes, I'm a firm believer in the 3 bid.
LeMay?
I have to agree with that. I think you also need to look around the community, not use the same people all the time unless you're very satisfied with the way they have done things, and also check into the bids and not always accept the lowest bid, but accept the best bid for the product that we're getting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brenda.
I would agree also. However, I do think that there are probably a couple of instances where a sole source provider may be the best option if there's limited resources for a particular project.
Thank you, Ed.
I would go with the 3-bid process, and that's even better. But you just don't want to drag down the process where it takes too long to get someone to the job, so that's my thought.
Okay, thank you. And Patty?
The contract we have with our management. The contract we have with our contract we have with our management company says we're supposed to have 3 bids. But oftentimes it's difficult because of past practices of boards in the past. Companies don't want to do business with us. So that makes it kind of difficult for the manager. That situation has been getting better. So it's ideal. But sometimes you just can't get 3 bids.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I believe in the 3-bid process, but again, I also know that sometimes you can't possibly get 3 bids for a particular job. But it should at least have a couple of bids. And again, look at who's doing it, their reputation, and the quality of work that they're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Next question. And we'll be starting with LeMay this time. Name the top 2 ways you feel you can improve life for residents of Timber Oaks relative to rules and regulations.
Well, that's a hard one. I honestly love being here. I don't think we have too many rules and regulations at this point. There's a few things I would like to see changed, only because I think we're adults and shouldn't be policed as much as we are as far as, well, I'll give you one, food on the upper deck. I think mostly listening to the people who are here, a lot of people have some really good ideas, and as long as it's okayed under rules and regulations and is okayed by the board, I think some of these things should be brought to the attention of the board and voted on. Thanks.
Brenda?
I'm not familiar with all the rules and regulations, but so far, since I've been here, I moved in October, I think that they're adequate and understandable. However, some of them seem to be maybe moving, because of COVID, moving towards more restrictions. And so I just wanted to make sure that any additional rules or regulations, restrictions that we have in place are needed and what's best for the community.
Okay, Ed?
I think most of the rules are pretty adequate at this point. I think we can always make adjustments because things change over time, and we don't always have to do things the way we've always done it. Sometimes that seems to be an issue. But on the whole, like I said, I love this place. Love living here, and I'm happy here. The rules don't bother me too much.
Patty?
Can you repeat the question? Sure.
Name the top 2 ways you feel you can improve life for residents of Timber Oaks relative to rules and regulations.
We're going to try something different.
This works. Jerry, is it still staticky? Okay. I think the rules and regs are in pretty good shape, and people have been listened to. When I first came down here back in the midst of time when dinosaurs roamed the earth, if you had a guest at the pool, you had to stay with them. And over time, that has evolved, so you don't have to do that anymore. Now you don't have pool tags and you don't have guest tags because people said they didn't want it, and the boards have listened. And the other thing is, when you go out to other communities, when you meet with them, when you go to directors' functions and they have lectures and things, you find out that other places have much more strict regulations. Like you can't have any yard work or roof work or anything outside your house done on a Sunday. If you have a landscaper, they have to put a cone 15 feet back from their vehicle, and if they don't, they're trespassed for 2 weeks. And that means all of their customers don't get service for 2 weeks. I think most of our rules and regs make sense, and the boards have listened to people about changes, and we've evolved, and we'll continue to keep evolving as new situations arrive.
Thank you, Patty. Chris?
I know one of the biggest complaints that we hear is speeders up and down Ponderosa, and it's hard to go in and out of some communities such as Monterey for one. The rules in general are fine, and they've been adjusted just recently. And I don't think we have to say you have to wear a bathing suit in the pool. That's an assumed thing here, that you don't go in there nude. I mean, you don't want to spell everything out A to Z. There needs to be some common sense here. So I think they're pretty well adjusted, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And Donna?
For the most part, yeah, I agree too. We've got some really good rules. And my husband and I are mountain people, and we've said if we could take a place like Timber Oaks and take it to Tennessee, we'd be gone in a heartbeat. This place is awesome. I'm thankful for all of the different things that we get to do here. We feel very blessed in that. One of the biggest complaints that I have heard is, oh, well, so-and-so over here, he gets to do this, but yet I'm getting a letter because I haven't done this. So the rules are not the same for everybody, and they need to be. And I'll work toward trying to do that.
Okay, you answered first, right, LeMay? Okay, next question. What is, and this is very similar, what is the first thing you would like to see changed if you become a board member? And I'll start with Brenda this time.
One of the things that I would like to change is the way residents are made aware of what's going on. It was mentioned earlier that sometimes people are like, why did that happen? Or how did that happen? And so I think that the communication between the board and their decisions that are made and the residents can be improved.
Thank you, Ed.
Well, I think the most, it's like the battery dead. Okay, is it on?
Yeah.
The only main thing right now is we're struggling with this COVID thing. And once we get through that and get back to normal, I'd like to see things back to normal. Where we can have our dances and have the activities that we so enjoy here with each other. So that's my only thing.
Okay, thank you, Ed. And Patty?
I think the biggest thing is communication. And I know it's great to say, well, we're on Facebook or we're here or there, but I think the board should use robocalls more to let folks know what's going on or what isn't going on. And I think that's an inexpensive way to communicate with residents, and then the residents can communicate back with the office because they'll know really what's going on and not what somebody told them 4 times removed.
Thank you, Chris.
I attend all board meetings, so I pretty much know what the board is doing and why they're doing it. And now we have the video streaming of board meetings. So if you spend the time, if you don't want to come to the board meeting, watch the videos, you should know what's going on in the community. When they pop up with a special meeting, I think that's where the robocall should go out because I plan my calendar for 2 board meetings a month. Thank you.
Donna, and the question is, what's the first thing you'll change?
One of the first things I think I'd like to see changed is I would like for the residents to be a little more informed on where all of our money is going. It's easy to say, okay, we're spending $100,000 on pavers to go around the pool. What kind of pavers? Who's doing the work? Are we going to get a warranty? Things like this that are not discussed, and the homeowners are like, we're spending how much for what? And who decided that? What color? Don't know. The board knows, but the residents don't know, and they need to be informed. It's their money.
Okay, thank you. LeMay?
I agree that communication is a big need between board and residents. We have Facebook, we have an office here, we have places where you can post things. I think if we're going to have a board meeting, we had the emergency one and everyone saying, what's the agenda? And very few knew it. And we had, you come to the board meetings and you hear about all these things that are being done and everyone's saying, when did that happen? So I think with Facebook and social media and with places to post things here, I believe that even after the board meeting, we have a secretary who does the minutes for the meetings. Why aren't they posted? Or put on through social media, or at least posted on a bulletin board here so that everyone knows what was talked about and what's going on, and also what's going to happen at the next board meeting. I just feel that's an important part of being here.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we'll start with Ed. How do you feel about enforcement of deed restrictions?
Deed restrictions are what makes a community like this function. I know when I first was looking for a house, I came down here and we were driving around looking at different houses, and when I came into Timber Oaks, it was like, wow, everything's green. Because everything else in the non-deed restricted communities was all dried up and brown. And I think they're very important. And it's important that we enforce them.
Okay, thank you, Patty.
I think this is probably the most emotional issue we have here. And I was on the first finding and suspension committee, and invariably somebody would come in and say, why did I get a letter? I've got 3 neighbors who didn't get a letter. Well, the problem is you don't know if your neighbors got a letter because the committee's not going to tell you. And granted, that system has changed now, so it's more open and residents know. I think it's a never-ending problem, and you have to keep at it, and some people comply and take care of things, and some people don't. So that's why we have the person that goes out, and I think we need to keep the enforcement for everyone, or else we're all going to lose our property values.
Thank you. Chris?
Could you repeat the question?
How do you feel about enforcement of deed restrictions?
It's necessary to have enforcement of deed restriction to maintain the look of the community. But I don't feel it goes far enough, because sometimes the backyards and the side yards are disgusting of your neighbors. And you should be able to look at those, not only the yards that back up to Ponderosa, that you see those. Thank you.
Donna?
Well, I do agree too, because when we were first coming down here from Georgia going looking, my daughter was a real estate agent. And she said, Dad, forget it. You're not moving to this neighborhood because, like Ed said, it's like trash. I do like the fact in a way that it is deed restricted because everything stays kept up nice. But like, for example, we just did a driveway for a guy that had to get his driveway done, but everybody in his cul-de-sac all have gray driveways. This guy had to get a tan driveway. Now they're all supposed to get tan driveways. How soon before the others get a letter that they gotta get tan driveways? When you got one that looks nice and then one that doesn't, it kind of makes your property value look bad.
LeMay?
I think deed restriction is a necessary evil. And you can tell that just going outside of Timber Oaks in any direction and you see a house that is well maintained, looks very nice with a neighborhood that has stones all over and weeds growing up through. I currently serve as the chairman of the Architectural Review Committee, or the ARC, and we have been trying to work with residents because I think some rules have been taken so strictly that it is sometimes unfair. The other thing with that is when you talk about the fines, I think we do a good job in that it goes to the board and they go through everything, but we also have a review committee that goes over those fines and can hear the residents. We've also, I know at the last board meeting, there was an owner, she didn't live here, who came to dispute her fines. And I was very impressed with the way the board handled it. It was done fairly, and it was fair to us as well. You can't fine one person and not another. And I think that's a problem, but there are 2,000 homes in here. So everything doesn't get done at once.
Thank you. Brenda?
I am in favor of enforcing the rules. However, I do think that there should be equality in the enforcement, and also a little bit of common sense goes a long way. Make sure that we're enforcing things that make a difference.
Okay, thank you. I start with Patty with the next question. How do you feel about opening up the clubhouse and activities?
That is a very difficult question. My husband and I, because of our age and conditions, have not been using the clubhouse. I think that's a personal decision that people need to make. I know the board did consult with an attorney early on last year and took the attorney's advice under advisement. And it's difficult because some people say, well, if I want to go, I should be able to go. But then that leaves other people saying, I can't go there. And it is very difficult. And I think it's going to come down to a personal decision.
Hey, Chris?
I enjoy seeing people and visiting with folks, but I'm one of the people that it's too soon for me to come up here and work coffee clutch and a breakfast or whatever. Just can't do it. So for those that want to and can, and if the county laws or guidelines are out there that says we can, then it's fine.
Donna?
Well, it's just like about this meeting. This room holds 200 people. You see how many people are here? We are spaced out. If we want to open things back up, I say, okay, but let's enforce the mask. Let's enforce the social distancing. And those that want to come, come. Those that want to stay home, stay home. I care for a lot of seniors in here. I clean their houses and cook meals for them. I can't afford to get anything for myself, let alone for anybody else that I work with. So I do take my precautions and I wear my mask and I sanitize. And if I want to be at a function, I'll be at a function. If I don't feel comfortable, I won't be there. So I leave it up to the individuals.
Thank you, LeMay.
I think if you listen to board meetings, you probably know how I feel about this. I don't see any reason for us to close functions down. I don't know why our kitchen is closed. I have No idea why we cannot come in here and get ice out of an ice machine. As far as I'm concerned, things should be open. I also feel you should wear your mask, social distance, take your precautions. And if you are not comfortable with that, don't attend, don't come down. But don't take that away from people who are willing to do that or who want to do that.
Brenda?
I am in favor of opening everything as long as we do not break any of the rules or mandates from local state government.
I'm for opening everything up and getting back to normal. It might be a process where we have to do mask and distancing for a while, but I'd like to see us use these facilities like we used to.
Patty, we started with you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to be starting with Chris. As a general rule, which extreme do you lean toward? 1, don't let the budget go up, or 2, we have to spend money to improve and maintain Timber Oaks.
We do have to spend money to improve and maintain Timber Oaks. And if prices for materials, labor go up every year, and it's hard not to increase the budget. As a member of the budget committee, I think you're going to be very pleased with the results when we hand it to the board of directors. Thank you.
Donna?
Well, there's a catch-all to both of those. I don't want to see this budget go up because unlike myself, I know there's a lot of seniors out there that are on fixed budgets that don't really have the money for this HOA to keep going up and going up. So the fee that we're paying right now, I feel is very reasonable. But yet there are some things that need to be fixed over other things that we are getting fixed. Like the pool pavers. Right now, I don't see anything dire about replacing them right now. But yet you drive along and you see all the debris gone from in front of the clubhouse. Why don't we put some of that money toward getting the plants and make the place look decent before we spend unnecessary money on others? So we need to be more conscientious on where we are assigning these budgets to take care of the things that are dire now instead of wasteful spending.
Thank you. LeMay?
I feel strongly that our fees should not go up. Too many people do not have the extra money to put into that. And for those people looking at the budget and looking at what we're spending money on, I'm sure they're aghast. And secondly, we need to spend money to keep this place looking nice and well maintained. But I was a stay-at-home mom when my kids were little, and I worked on a budget that had, one person bringing money in. In my opinion then was the same as it is now. If you had a woman who was a stay-at-home mom in charge of the budget at the White House, we would have no debt. But on top of that, I see things that need done. I stood outside under the porch, the awning out in the pool when a thunderstorm hit and stood in 8 inches of water because the drainage is not good out there, and that needs to be fixed. And I came inside and someone told me I was not allowed inside. I had a bathing suit on. I'm sorry, I'm not standing in water in a thunderstorm. But the other thing I see is that the amount of money that we're spending to replace those pavers, I agree there are problems with some of them. Our drainage along this end and the drainage along the wall needs to be fixed. We could have done that for a lot less than $112,000. Yes, we would not be able to match the pavers that are out there, but we could have used different pavers as a highlighter and then used the extra ones to repair ones that needed to be done. I just think common sense needs to be used in repairing and fixing our community.
Thank you, LeMay. Brenda?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. As a general rule, which extreme do you lean toward? 1, don't let the budget go up, or 2, we have to spend money to improve and maintain Timber Oaks.
The short answer for me is that we have to spend money to maintain improved Timber Oaks. However, I do think it's the responsibility of the board to make sure that we're spending money on the right things at the right time.
Ed?
I tend to lean toward the first. Don't spend more money if you don't have to. But of course, I know that prices do go up and think money has to be spent, but to me, because you have money in the budget, doesn't mean you have to spend it all. You know, it would, and if you watch your funds, then you'll have more to spend later if you need to.
The Toxa Board has a fiduciary duty, not just to maintain this place as it was in 1980, but to upgrade and modernize and keep it current so that the values stay up. We are in a very sound financial position. The Finance Committee went to a budget training session, and the whole committee went with Sue, and there were about 50 people in the room. And the lecturer said, who in here has fully funded reserves? And we all looked at each other and raised our hand. The gentleman behind me tapped me on the shoulder and said, how can you afford that? And I said, how can you afford not to? We have never had a special assessment here. When major projects come along, they have been carefully thought out and planned for years and years in advance. Even when we replace the roofs, we have not had to have a special assessment. And I know realtors don't believe that when you tell them that. They're like, you've never had a special assessment. People have been very good shepherds of the finances here, and we have a very low monthly assessment, but we do need to spend the money that has been saved. And that's the biggest thing. 10 years ago, we redid the pool and the clubhouse, and the obligation was to replace that money so the next go around and the next people here, and the money sitting in the bank for those improvements. And that's how you do it. It's cyclical. And once you spend it, you replace it.
Thank you. And Chris, I started with you last time?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, next question, I'll start with Donna. With the prospect of the COVID pandemic conditions improving, what should the plan be going forward?
Well, like I say, COVID is very bad. I had 2 of my best friends taken out on the same day with this. And it still hits hard and it hits home. But I think that we can afford to kind of start opening up a little bit. You keep people locked up and they're going to turn into wild animals. I know I will. I miss the dances. I miss the activities. I miss the people. We've got wonderful people that live in Timber Oaks, and I miss them. And I think as long as we stay, as long as we stay spaced out and wear our mask and do like we're doing and following the guidelines, I don't see why we can't open back up.
Thank you. LeMay?
I think nothing but improvement is showing with COVID and the way things are going now. We had over 400 people here that, well, actually we had over 900 originally signed up in order to get the vaccination here. And by the time it rolled around and was time to get it, for various reasons, and a lot of them were the fact that a lot of people in the meantime had gotten their vaccination, we still had over 400 that got vaccinated here. I know there's questions going back and forth all the time, and I don't think anybody has one right answer on what works and how you do things. So be safe, follow Pasco County rules, Florida state rules, and let's start opening things up gradually.
Brenda?
I agree. I think we should open up as long as we follow all the rules for the county, state.
I think we should open up and use our facilities as we can properly. I mean, we have the guidelines from the county, from the state. So as long as we follow those, we should be good.
Patty?
Follow the science. And I think that's the best way to do it, just slowly but surely. The end is in sight, but we're not there yet. And as long as everyone continues to be vigilant, even though we all have fatigue about this thing, that we'll be okay and we can help each other and we'll get the place open back up.
And Chris?
Yes, we should open up when Pasco County rules say we can. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with LeMay for the next question. If elected, what would you, as a board member, do to see that more residents attend the meetings?
That's difficult because we try over and over again. And, you know, some people are very excited about something that's going to happen or very angry about something that's going to happen. Either way, they should be heard and they need to come here. But asking people to come and they're saying, oh yeah, I'll be there. And then you show up at a meeting and you've got half or less that come and actually express themselves here. Expressing yourself on Facebook or to your neighbor or to someone next to you in the pool is not the same as attending a meeting and being heard. I don't really know. I think it's great that we are now putting them out and people can watch from home and they can watch it at any time. That's a big, big difference from what it was before, and I think it's good, but you still cannot have your voice heard through media. So we can campaign for it, we can try, but I'm at a loss for that.
Brenda?
I'm not sure how to get people here, but I think communicating about what's on the agenda, when the meetings are happening, and how many people will be allowed in the meeting room will be helpful, as well as perhaps having a media where we can talk, where people can ask questions from home.
Like live streaming with
Live streaming or Zoom call or something.
Ed?
Well, people are gonna come if they feel that a subject affects them. And if they're fine with what's going on, most of them are. I mean, you can't beat them with a stick. So, you know, you make it open and available and that's all you can do.
Patty?
I know every month on the front page of the Timber Times, it gives the meetings. But, you know, that doesn't create excitement anywhere or interest even. And I think it might be nice if my fallback, the robocall, you know, there's a meeting on Friday or there's an election deadline. Have you returned your ballots in yet? If not, this is what you need to do. And I think a more direct approach to people might engender some interest and excitement.
Chris?
I've been coming to meetings regularly since I moved here. They had prior to COVID, entice homeowners to come with food. I see the same 20 to 30 people here all the time. Very few newbies come in, and if they do come in, they come in for one meeting and they never come back. So I don't know what to tell you how to entice them.
Well, a lot of people, you're not going to get a lot of people come to these meetings. They're just not going to come. But the thing is, if you can encourage them and say, listen, the meetings are not like they were before. We are actually being heard now. Things are nice. We're not getting yelled at. We're not getting screamed at. We're not screaming at the board's not screaming at us. everything's working out, it's being nice, I think you'd get a lot more people here. But right now, people don't want to come. They're like, oh, I went to a board meeting once, and they don't want to come back. We've got to try to encourage them and let them know. The board meetings are getting better. We are being heard, and you need to try us again.
Did I start with you? Yeah. Okay, Brenda, I'll start with you for the next question. Do you believe the board should follow state and local laws as well as our documents in forming decisions?
Absolutely.
Okay, Ed?
Is that really? That's a yes or no answer, yes.
Patty?
Of course, they have to. And if not, their board insurance isn't going to work. And that was one of the hardest things I had to face when I was on the board the last time. People would come up to me and say, well, why are we doing this? And you'd say, because the state law said we have to, like the blue ballot envelope and the gray ballot envelope. And they say, well, I don't like it, break the law. And I would have to say to them, can't do that. I'm not putting my house on the line. If it's really bothersome, let's get a group together and go talk to the county commissioners or what it takes to get it changed. But people do actually say, well, just break the law and nobody will tell on you. But that's not going to happen.
Chris?
Yes.
Donna?
Yeah, I do believe that the laws and everything should be enforced, but at the same time, if one's got to follow it, make everybody have to follow it.
Okay.
I think it would be kind of impossible to make a law that goes against the state or county laws and expect people to follow it. So, yes.
Okay, I started with you, Brenda. Okay, Ed, I'm going to start with you. As being a candidate, what do you think is the most important characteristic a leader should possess? Integrity, intelligence, innovative ideas, or industry? Hang on. I think it's industriousness for the people. You want me to read that again?
Yeah, please.
Okay. As being a candidate, what do you think is the most important characteristic a leader should possess? Integrity, intelligence, innovative ideas, or industriousness for the people?
Personally, I would say integrity, because the people have put their faith in you, and you owe that to them. And if you don't have integrity, you're not going to do anything but serve yourself.
Patty?
All of the above.
Okay. Chris?
Integrity is the most important, but you need a little bit of everything there.
Donna?
No, I'm kind of torn between two, actually, and one is integrity and intelligence. You know whether something's right or something's wrong, so just use your common sense. But at the same time, be diligent, and if you say you're going to help somebody do something, then help them do something.
Okay, LeMay?
I think integrity is the most important, but you aren't going to have integrity unless you have some sort of intelligence. So I would hope they ran hand in hand and that would take care of the other choices.
And Brenda?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. As being a candidate, what do you think is the most important characteristic a leader should possess? Integrity, intelligence, innovative ideas, or industriousness for the people?
Okay, well, as a leader, I think the most important quality should be open-mindedness, which is not on the list. So I'll say intelligence.
Thank you. And I started with you, right? Okay. Patty, the next question. This may be a lot like another one, but I'm gonna have you answer it anyway. What specific thing would you like to see done differently when you are on the TOXA board?
I would like to see us go back to something that was done a long time ago, when the board packets would be delivered to the board 48 hours in advance. The office had what they called the Bible, and it was a book, and you could go to the office and look at it. And it would have the agenda and the agenda items. So if there were contracts, you had a chance to read them in advance, and you had a chance to review what was going to be discussed at the meeting. And it made for much more intelligent conversations, because people weren't sitting there going, well, there's 3 contracts and one's for 2,000 and one's for 10,000 and what's the difference between the two? People were able to examine the documents and make some decisions or get some questions. Of course, anything that would be confidential, like members not paying assessments or something like that, that would not be included in the public book. But if they would go through the agenda, so you could see all the backup items, and it made for a more intelligent audience and residents.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I believe the board packet is issued 48 hours in advance, and I can't stress that sometimes the board needs to take and read it prior to coming to the meeting.
Donna?
I guess one of the things that I want to say is, I think that if I was elected to the board or whatever, that I would like to see that things were broken down in simple English, not these, I'm not illiterate, so don't take it that way, but I'd like things put in perspective where simple-minded people can understand what's going on and they can make a decision too, instead of just having the board say, okay, this is what we're doing, next question, you know? And then that way I think everybody would get involved more.
Lene?
I would hope that if you're elected to the board, that you had the intelligence and the energy and the intent of looking into things before they're brought up at the meetings. What I would like to see changed is the way people react. I hate coming to a meeting. For years, I stopped coming because of the bullying and back and forth nastiness. And I'm not talking about the board to the people who were here. I'm talking about the people here to the board and the board to the people here. I hate to sit down in a meeting and while someone's talking, whether or not you agree with them or not, that I have to listen to people around me moaning and groaning under their breath that you can't even hear the people on the stage. And when someone on the board is talking, I hate to hear other people on the board moaning and groaning or disagreeing or shaking their heads or putting that person down. Respect to me is a big part. And I think if that were done, we would have more people coming to meetings. The one I came to was so horrendous, I don't think I came for another year.
LeMay?
I just answered it there.
Sorry, Brenda.
I think that there's room for improvement in the communication between the board and the residents. Also, I think that there is room for improvement between the residents and the way they communicate to the board. So that's the first thing I would like to change.
And Ed?
I would say respect. Respect.
Okay.
Everyone should respect each other. And when a person is called upon, they should be given their time. And there's no reason, like LeMay said, for the back talk and everything else going on. And they should be called out of order as they are.
Patty? Oh, I started again, I'm sorry. Okay, Chris, how do you feel about the residents only being able to speak for 3 minutes? When we only have a few that get up to speak?
I think that's ample time to get your point across. And if they need to speak their mind on the subject further, they can go to open forum.
Donna?
I feel like that they should be able to speak for as long as they need to, because there have been times that I've been at the meeting and everything, and somebody is talking to the board, and then the board members go talking between themselves, trying to answer questions, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, they're telling the person that's asking the question, your time's up. No, their 3 minutes is still there. And they should be allowed to answer for that 3 minutes.
LeMay?
I honestly feel that 3 minutes can be a very long time. And sometimes because they have 3 minutes, things are repeated over and over again. So I think 3 minutes is plenty of time for the most part. I also think if you have more to say, or if you want to add to the conversation after, because you're only allowed to speak once on a subject. So if something is said after you've talked, and you aren't allowed to say anything back about it, but there is the open forum and you can talk freely during that time. Oh, I'm done. Karen. I'm finished.
I knew you were done. I said, Brenda, go ahead.
Brenda, go
No,
ahead. Okay.
this time I knew.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think 3 minutes is a long time as well. So I do think though that perhaps if there's a question that needs to be answered, that there might be some time allowed for a second question or a response to an answer.
I think 3 minutes is plenty of time. But I think that if something comes up after that, then the person should be able to respond to it.
Patty?
I think the 3 minutes is more than enough, and it's also, its placement is correct. As each agenda item is reached, people are allowed to speak on it. There are some organizations where you have to get up before the meeting starts if you want to address the board on an issue. Or you have to wait to the end, and instead of having an open forum, you can tell the board what you think about certain things. But the problem is, by then it's already voted on. But I think our system works very well.
We're running a little bit over, and with your indulgence, I have 3 more questions that I would like to be able to ask the candidates. And so are the candidates good with that? And our audience, if you're not good with that, I guess you could leave. But anyway, I'm going to move forward with those. Okay, the next one I start with Donna, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Donna, explain to the audience your understanding of how our budget and our reserves work.
Budget and what work?
And the reserves.
I know that a lot of the money that is collected, some of it's put in a reserve under different accounts, like so much for roofing, so much for painting, electrical, whatever has to be done. But when you do a budget, you have to sit there and say, okay, we need to get the painting done. So how much of the reserve money do we have that we can allot for having the painting done? Then get the contracts for getting said work done, get the 3 estimates, whatever, and say, okay, this is what it's gonna cost us. Now, do we have enough in the reserves to pay for this? And if not, then when can we get this done based on the years or whatever that we have allotted for that? But as far as, crazy, as far as the budget, like I say, you can't sit there and say, well, we really only had 40,000 in this, but you know, really, I think it's gonna cost us more 60,000. Then no. Put it off until you can get the money saved up to pay for it.
LeMay?
My understanding is that the money that we pay in our dues is put into different accounts. The reserves are set there. I'm sure we have an emergency fund, but reserves are set so that every so many years we have enough money to upgrade or do something with the pavers or the pool or the painting or the flowers in front. My concern, my feeling on that is I think it's great. And those are done to keep things upgraded and apropos with everything around us. But do we spend it to a point where we are left without enough money if a major emergency comes up? That is my fear, and I feel that common sense should also be worked into that.
Okay, Brenda?
It's my understanding that the reserve plan needs to be funded, and then depending on the projects and how long they last, once they're completed, they're refunded throughout the years, so that if you repair a roof and then the next time, or replace a roof, the next time that it's due, you'll have the money for that. There is also an operating budget that pays for the things that have to be done every month or every other month or every week, or pays salaries and that kind of stuff that we need to operate Timber Oaks.
Ed?
I understand that the budget has the reserve system, so certain items you're going to put money into those accounts every month out of the dues collected, and then say it's a roof and it's replaced every 10 years, then in 10 years you should have enough money to replace that roof. If you don't use that, and then you would end up like what Patty was talking about earlier with having to do special assessments and all that kind of thing. So the reserve system works great as long as you fund it properly.
Patty?
The budget is a snapshot in time. And what happens is, you know, like the roofs for 20 years and the chairs in the auditorium are gonna last another 5 years. Professionals are brought in, and they do this periodically, and Toxa Board pays for it, and they go through everything, and they say, well, we think this roof, we put it on 2 years ago, we're gonna give it 18 years. Or the chairs only have 5 years left. And that's how you figure out your budget and how much money is gonna go in the reserves. We have pool and spa, painting, roofs, furniture and fixtures, and then the voluntary deferred. And that's the savings account, that things that don't belong to the other four, and those are statutory. And that's where the money comes from. But it's not that a board suddenly says, we're gonna replace the pavers. That project has been in the works since 2014. And the money has been saved to do it. And they're also going to be doing the drainage. The drains out there have never been right. And the time has come to fix it, but that was part of the plan. And that was part of the savings, so that when we do it, we're gonna pay cash for it. We don't have any loans or any outstanding mortgages or anything like that. But these projects don't just appear full blown out of someone's imagination. They are long planned, and they are done in cooperation with professional advice.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Would you read the first part of the question?
Yeah, tell us your understanding of how our budget and our reserves work.
We have statutory and voluntary reserves, and they are funded every month through our dues. And every item is given a use of life, and so if the use of life of the roof is 20 years, we save to pay for a new roof during that 20 years, so much a month. And the budget looks at what is use of life is up for this next fiscal year. And we look at that and give a list to the board of what projects need to be looked at, put on the table for work. You might not need to buy new furniture for the auditorium, even though the use of life of these chairs has been long past. Well, you might like to buy new chairs. Sitting in them are horrible. Sometimes we add new line items to make a voluntary reserve, or such as we did a new line item for concrete for $35,000 to help plan for future projects that require concrete.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we start with LeMay. If you get on the board, will you know enough to make up your own mind, or will you be going with other board members that have been on the board longer?
I think most people that know me would know that I speak my own mind. That doesn't mean I wouldn't listen to what other board members say or what residents have said and check into that. I mean, I'm not going to be set in stone in that whatever I want is going to happen no matter what. But I'm not one to really follow along. So, yes.
Okay, Brenda?
I'm an independent thinker, so I would keep an open mind and listen to as many people as I could about the topic, and then make an independent decision based on information that I received from other residents, and that includes other board members.
Ed?
I believe in making up my own mind, but I will listen to everyone, try to take as much input as I can before I make a decision. I'll listen to board members, I'll listen to residents, I'll listen to our manager and what he has to say. So, you know, it's a position that needs an open mind.
Patty?
As a board member, you have to do your homework, and there's a lot of it. And you have to be willing to delve into contracts or find out about concrete or trees and everything else, and then work with other members of the board for the benefit of the community. And that doesn't mean getting your own way all the time. It means you have to find a middle ground and work together.
Chris?
I do my own research, look at the material provided, and I listen to other people, but ultimately it's my opinion that I would express at the meeting.
Donna?
Well, let's see, I've got Swedish, Dutch, and Indian blood in me, so I'm a fighter. And if I feel like that there are other ways to handle things, I'm going to be the first person to sit there and say, I'm sorry, that can we try it this way? Yet at the same time, I work with everybody and anybody within reason.
Okay, and we have time for one last question. And This one, there are quite a few questions on it, and I'm picking the one that I think is probably the most important. Starting with Brenda, why do you want this responsibility?
Well, I touched on this a little earlier. I'm curious how here as an owner. I think it's a responsibility that I don't take lightly. And that, again, if you don't get involved, then you shouldn't complain about it. So one of the things that I want to do is have an effect on making life better here in Timber Oaks, and that getting involved is the way to do that.
Ed?
Well, I decided that it was time to step up and jump in, so, doesn't do any good to complain if you're not willing to be a part and try to get things done.
Patty?
I love Timber Oaks, and for the most part, I have nothing but happy memories from here of the wonderful people. And right now, I have the time that I can devote to it. When my mom was getting sick and things, that wasn't the right time for me. My priorities were elsewhere. But I really love this place, and all I want to do is see it get better and better and better.
Chris?
I like to get more involved in the decision-making process of what occurs here at Timber Oaks. And I have the time, and I have a good wealth of knowledge to go along with that. Thank you.
Donna?
Well, a lot of people ask me, they say, are you crazy or something to try to get on the board? And I say, well, I guess I'm a glutton for punishment, because this makes the 4th year I'm trying to run for the board. So one of these days, maybe I'll get elected. But the main reason why I want to get on this board is because I want to help to be that voice for the residents.
LeMay?
I agree that it's a lot of responsibility, but I also feel that you can't really complain or moan about something unless you're willing to do something about it. I hope that I'm the voice of common sense that is on the board. Sometimes I look at things that are happening and think, that's just crazy. So, and I also feel that a lot of residents feel that way about some things. So I'd like to either be able to explain why it's crazy or maybe make a change so that it's not so crazy. Thank you.
Okay, and as I said in the beginning, each candidate will have 1 minute to do kind of a wrap up. So we're going to start with Ed.
Okay, well, I've been here since 2012. Been asked to run several different times and said, no way, I don't want to do that. Done it before. And, but like I said, it was time. I wanted to see things improve and get involved. And, you know, I love it here. And I think this is one of the best communities around, so we can make it better, make everybody happy, make the people enjoy everything that we have. That's just a plus, plus, plus. And I think that there's no reason we can't.
Patty?
Thank you all for being here and your patience and your politeness, and vote. Please vote. Get your neighbors to vote, get your friends to vote. Let's create some excitement about this election, and let's have a really big voter turnout. Thank you for your consideration.
Chris?
I've worked on various committees, and I have a very good knowledge of construction. And even though I can't do a lot of it these days anymore, but that's why I feel that I'm ready to serve for the board. Thank you.
Donna?
Well, one thing I want the people to know is that my word is my bond. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to try my best to do it. And a lot of people used to say, well, you still work. Yes, I do. But my residents that work with me, they work with me. So if I have to have the time off to be at board meetings, I can be at board meetings. If I have to have the time to come down here for an emergency, I've got the time to do that because they work with me. So me working is not an issue. So I would like to be able to be here to be that voice, like I keep saying, for the residents, because we need the people. And we need the people to get out there and vote and to actually run for the boards themselves.
LeMay?
I was asked numerous times to run for the board and always say, no way, I'm not getting involved in that. But part of that reason was the fact that I did not live here year round. We are here year round, so I hear the concerns of the residents who are also here year round and also of the quote snowbirds that come down. And I see all the different things that go on, and I think I'd be good at helping out with a lot of it. I volunteer in a number of things. And so I am aware of a lot of things that I think other people may not know about. And I also would like to see more people involved in volunteering and enjoying what's offered here. Thank you.
Brenda?
Thank you all for coming tonight and giving us the opportunity to answer your questions and get to know you a little bit more, or say you get to know us a little bit more. I've worked on the Homeowners Association Board of Directors where I came from in Indiana. I've also volunteered for the Board of Directors for the Indiana Society of Professional Land Surveyors, the profession that I belong to in Indiana. So I have experience working on boards. I am a team player, a quick learner, and an independent thinker, but I'm also community minded, and doing what's best would be my goal. What's best for Timber Oaks would be my goal. Thank you again for coming tonight and listening.
Okay, and I want to add my thanks to the audience and to our candidates and my team, my committee members, and my extra helpers, and also to the office staff and maintenance for making this all possible. We're going to close the meeting, but you're welcome to stay and interact with the candidates until John kicks you up. Thank you, everybody.